welcome back to the How to Podcast series. I have somebody with me that I met on Podmatch, which is fun. Yay, Alex and team. I love that. And it's great to have Tracy here on the show. We're going to be talking about her podcast. She's got some great ideas for you as a new podcaster or as you continue to podcast, but how to build your community through email and all that kind of stuff as well, which I'm super interested in. And she's got master classes. She's got a great library of resources for you as a podcaster. So Tracy's here on the show with me. Tracy, welcome as my guest co-host. So glad to have you here.
Thanks. I appreciate it, David. It's great to see you again. And Podmatch for the win, right?
There you go. All right. So we should get sponsored by them or something. I don't know. Anyway, they're great awesome. People. They're great people. And I love the connections that I make through there. So thank you to Podmatch. Tracy, tell everybody about your podcast. Let's start with that. What's your show? What's it about? Let's go.
Yeah, for sure. So I had a podcast on my list of things to do for my business that I really wanted to get to for years. And this time last year, I told myself, okay, you either need to stop talking about it or you need to get it done. And so I decided to get it done, and I launched last summer. So it's still a fairly new podcast. We're on episode, I think, 45 right now because we do one episode a week. And the fun part was when I launched it, I did do a really cool pre-launch strategy that allowed me to rise in up to top-ranked 5% show in about 12 days.
Nice.
So that was really cool. The show is called Create Online Business Success. And as a business and sales coach in the online space, I help online entrepreneurs, coaches, course creators, consultants to build their businesses with ease and authenticity. So that's what the show is about, is all kinds of tactical, actionable strategies that they can use to grow and scale and not feel the overwhelm, hopefully, and, have more clarity and believe in themselves,
Okay, excellent. That's great. And I love the idea of using that podcast to get your content out into the world. For you, when you started your show, what was your starting point? How did you learn how to do this? What got you into podcasting?
That's a great question. So I was born talking.
Good.
On every report card growing up, it said, she's really smart. She's a joy. She talks too much in class. So I could talk to a brick wall. And so I knew a podcast was going to be for me. When I started my business, though, the tech part is what stumped me. I'm not a tech person. It's not my love language. The thought of buying, buying all the equipment, trying to hook it up, make it all work, edit, da-da-da-da-da. I was like, that's what had stopped me for all these years. So I finally realized, though, that my regular piece of weekly content since I started this business has been going live every Thursday at 11:30 with a free live training. And last year I was like, you know what, Tracy? Just pull the audio from StreamYard and use that as your podcast episode. Stop making it so difficult. And I hired somebody for an hour of their time to show me how to use Descript. And then I showed my son, who's a junior in college, how to use Descript. Of course, he learned it in about 15 minutes. It had taken me 2 weeks to figure it out. He's like, no, Mom, this is so cool. You just push this button and that button. And I was like, okay, you're annoying the crap out of me. You've learned this so fast. So he's my podcast manager. And so we just make it really easy. I record a cold open. I have the same intro. I pull the audio from StreamYard. I have a same outro. He stitches it all together into Descript and throws it into Buzzsprout and makes me look fabulous.
Wow. I hope you're paying him in like mounds and buckets full of money for all this extra work he's doing for you, right?
Well, we do pay for his college. So
okay, well, that helps.
There's that. Well, and on it, yes, I am giving him some extra money, also paying for his cell phone. So, there's that.
Well, he did send me an email to make sure that I brought that up, just so that we got a little bit more money for him, just so you know. Yeah.
That's really funny. And we have different last names because I'm married to his stepfather. And so we joke about how he could also put this on his resume and use me as a reference, and they'd never know I was his mom.
There you go. Does he have interest in that kind of working in that kind of field or to some degree in the future?
Possibly. He's studying marketing and entrepreneurship, and he really wants to go into marketing, advertising, that kind of thing. And I think he'd be really good at it. But what's been fun is that he sees now that this could be a side hustle if needed. I mean, what the kids these days, David, what they have available to them is so vastly different than when I went to college. I mean, you go to high school, you graduate, you go to college, you graduate, you get the job, and you stay in the job for 40 years, and then you get a retirement party and a pension. And that doesn't happen anymore. But, we were talking with him and his girlfriend about when they graduate, where do they want to live? How do they find the job? How do they look at the cost of living? How do they know if what they're going to get paid is going to be a living wage and da 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 da. And I said, what the cool thing is, you guys can do social media content for online entrepreneurs. You can do podcasting, so it's really cool. It's really cool. It's been a really great little extra feather in his cap,
Nice.
experience.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's good. I love seeing younger people getting into podcasting to some degree and leveraging that. Again, the opportunities to do something like this back in the day, air quotes here, we didn't have this opportunity. For you and I to do this together, for example, just didn't exist, right?
Yeah.
So I just love the new things that are coming our way and how easy it is to start a podcast. But even though it's easy to start a podcast, it's very hard to grow a podcast and grow a community around podcasting.
Right.
So when you started your show, what intentional things did you put into place to start building your podcast audience and growing that from the start? What did you try doing right off the bat?
Right off the bat, the pre-launch strategy included going to my audience and creating like a hype squad. Sharing with them, I'm starting this. I'm really excited about it. I would love your help. And I built a free Facebook group. It's called Be a Confident Entrepreneur. Everybody's invited. It's online entrepreneurs, about 3,600 of them right now. And they've known me for years. And I was in the group and I just said, hey, I'm creating this podcast. I would love to have some success right out of the gate. We're going to have a contest. Anybody that listens to an episode, writes a review, screenshot the review to me, you'll be entered in a drawing to win some one-to-one time with me. And we had about 35 people jump on board and do that. And I think that's what caused the ranking to skyrocket. So having that pre-launch strategy in place of like teasing people about what's coming, unboxing the equipment, that kind of thing was really helpful in the beginning to build it. But I'd already, in my defense, I'd already built a community. And so they were just excited about the fact that now there's another layer of my content that they can consume if they are podcast lovers.
Okay. So for somebody listening who has a podcast or dreaming of a podcast, when's the starting point to start building community then?
Yesterday.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And it's easier than you think. I mean, so as a business and sales coach, I teach all organic visibility and list growth strategies. And one of the best things for podcasters to do is to build an email list so you do have a community of subscribers and listeners who are excited to hear about what you're doing with your show. Okay.
Right away. Just don't wait. Don't wait for 100 episodes.
No.
Start right away, right?
Right. Start right away.
And then the whole idea, there's a lot of conversation around email and social media. And what's been happening, I find, on social media is we really are coming to grips with the fact that we don't own that platform.
Right.
Facebook, Instagram, fill in the blank. There's been times when Facebook has gone down and you can't get into there at all. You can't talk to your community. It's gone.
Right.
So the idea of having some way to stay in touch with your audience off these social platforms that require a login, email seems to be still that silent little thing in the background that's been there forever. Oh, it feels like, but it still works.
Yeah, it does. It's the tried and true way to stabilize any business or any podcast. And even, I was speaking to a room full of podcasters last fall at the Arkansas Podcast Festival about list growth and the importance of an email list. And in the audience, we had podcasters that are like me that use podcasting as a top of funnel strategy to sell an offer. But we also had podcasters that had a hobby show that were doing it just for fun, for entertainment, or to support the nonprofit that they love or a cause that they love. They weren't looking to monetize. But what I explained to them was that they still need an email list because of what you just said. We don't own social media. I mean, TikTok right now is a prime example of what's been going on. It was gone. Now it's back. Now it's for sale. Who knows what's going to happen? And we cannot control the algorithm. We have no control over who actually sees our content on social. It's a very small percentage of our audience that actually sees it. So what's important is to use social media and the online space to pull our listeners, pull our ideal audience, our potential clients off the online space and onto an email list. And that's where you can really nurture them. And even for a podcaster that does not intend to sell products or offers like I do, there is statistically, there is an increase in downloads when you email your list and say, hey, I've got a new episode coming out, or hey, did you catch this episode from last week? Downloads go just immediately spike. It's also a great way to keep your listeners close to you so that they stay loyal to you and they want to share your show with their friends. And you can do so many fun things with your email list. It really deepens that know, like, and trust factor, and and kind of shore up the fact that they're not going to leave you for another show. And then if you ever do want to monetize the show, as a sponsor, it's going to be really impressive to me. If you were to, what doesn't impress me is I have 50,000 followers on Instagram. My question is, are those followers your actual ideal clients? We don't know. But if you said to me, I've got an email list of 3,000 people and an open rate of 40%, I'm like, okay, put me in front of that email list, right? So if you ever want to monetize your show with sponsorships, having that email list ready to go with those engaged subscribers that are excited to hear from you, that's gold.
And you can start that on episode 1.
Correct.
You start building that right away. Mm-hmm. Even if you wanted to eventually have monetization in your future for your podcast, mm-hmm. you're not there yet.
Correct.
Then build into your podcast little spots mm-hmm. where maybe you come in with a little break and you talk about something else that would be, could be an ad break in the future. Mm-hmm. But get your audience used to the fact that you jump in and you say, I'm going to be speaking at a conference coming up in the future, and mm-hmm. here's the dates. I'd love for you to come and meet me in person.
Yep.
Right? That's technically an ad, but mm-hmm. someday you could replace that with something else. So
Correct.
Train your audience from the beginning that mm-hmm. you have something to offer. Yep. You want to be in touch with them, and you want to build community, and start mm-hmm. from the beginning. It might seem odd with 5 listens to an episode that you're already talking about building community. But people are going to follow along on the journey. And to your point, mm-hmm. how you did your show, people love to see people build in real time.
Right.
Instead of just seeing the result.
Yes.
On social media, we generally just see the end result.
Right.
Look at the house I bought. Here's my new car.
Right.
But how did you get there? I want to know how you got there. So I love that you built in public so everybody could kind of see your journey. That's great.
Yeah. People love to be a part of something.
Yeah.
I was there when Tracy Beavers started her podcast. I was there on episode 1 and I got the free t-shirt that she was offering and, for sure. And they love to have input too, asking your email list, what do they want to hear? What episode was their favorite? Mm-hmm. Or giving them a behind the scenes of something, kind of like you're saying. Well, how did I get David Campbell? How did I get on his show?
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? Right. That kind of stuff is fun to share and people want to be a part of it.
Yeah. Okay. So whether you have a podcast that supports your business, your coaching, your book, whatever it is, and you have a product or service to sell, mm-hmm. an email list makes sense. And if you don't have any of those things, mm-hmm. the one thing I would always encourage podcasters when they're starting a show, people might come to your show just for the companionship of having time with you.
Yeah.
And they listen to your show for whatever reason they're there. Mm-hmm. It might not even be about your content. I actually had somebody reach out to me, Tracy, and they said, I have no interest in starting a podcast.
Yeah.
But I listen to your show that comes out 3 times a week. You're crazy. 3 times a week, you show up on my phone, mm-hmm. and I feel like I know you.
Yes.
And you could talk about anything, and I would listen to your show.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I put all this work into my content. I was hoping you'd like the content.
Right.
But they're not here for that. They're just here to listen to Dave. And I'm like, I didn't expect that. The companionship part mm-hmm. between host and listener. Mm-hmm. I didn't anticipate that at all. And I think it's one thing to hear for your favorite podcaster, but when you can have communication with them
Yeah.
through email, through whatever means possible, it just deepens that connection between the host and the listener. So I love
does.
email for all those reasons.
Yeah, totally does. People are craving community, especially now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a vacuum, I think, happening. We're so connected through digital means, but so disconnected
Correct.
from each other in a personal way. And I think that's where podcasting thrives, is that beautiful connection where, again, I listen to your show and here I am talking to you. It's like, it's kind of surreal to have you in front of me when I listen to you and you keep me company at work. It's this kind of weird moment where you get to meet somebody that you really, that really brings value to your life. And I just think, as podcasters listening, just think about that and plan for that in the future, that even if your show is small,
Right.
that's the perfect time to build that connection and deepen that with a smaller audience.
Yeah.
5 people are easier to track down than 500,000. So
Right.
focus on the 5 and try to find out, how can I have a conversation with these people?
Yeah, because they will be loyal to you. They will share your show with their friends. 5 people can easily turn into 50, could easily turn into 100. And when one of my clients or students says, "Oh, well, I only have 5 people that listen to my show," I'm like, I want you to picture those 5 people standing in your kitchen.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that feels like a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's people, like you're saying, you can actually make a connection with.
Right.
And that's going to deepen the longevity of your show.
Do you have any tips or tricks on how to connect with a small audience at the beginning that worked for you?
Sure. So, a great way to build the email list from the show is to be sure to put something in the audio and something in the show notes that leads to your email list. So you could even say, if you'd love a behind the scenes of the episodes that I'm doing, grab a spot on my newsletter. People love that. Or if you want to be the first to know when a new episode's going to drop and what it's going to be about, you want to get on my newsletter. There were some podcasters at the festival that I spoke at last fall that had these really cool T-shirts. Their show was called "Should Have Been a Podcast," I think is what it was, and so it was, should have been anyway. The initials of that. They had these T-shirts made, and they got up to win. They won an award. They got up to win their award and to go get it. And I was looking at them. I was like, that would be a super cool giveaway. Enter to win one of our exclusive "Should Have Been a Podcast" T-shirts. People love that stuff.
Yeah. Limited edition, any of those things, right? Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
And then once people are on your list, it's really easy to communicate with them. Again, you can give them a behind the scenes of something. You can, tell your story. You can be like, you want to know how I ended up being a podcaster? Well, let me tell you. Here's the funny story. Here's how, I was on my way to work and somebody handed me a microphone and the rest is history. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
What about the mechanics of having an email newsletter and an email list? Any must-do practices or good-to-do practices that will keep your list healthy and vibrant? I don't want to create a list and have a bunch of people who never open my emails, they never interact, and I keep sending it to them. I would anticipate that my email newsletter and their email recipient that's going to talk to each other and say, this isn't high-value content, and it's going to put me in a spam folder or something.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of healthy things we can do for our newsletter to keep it rich and vibrant?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, you want an actual email service provider. So using Hotmail, Gmail, that's not okay. You're going to want to get something like ConvertKit, MailerLite, Flowdesk. There's a million email service providers out there. Just find one that you feel like you can navigate through, especially if you're like me and tech is not your love language. Flowdesk is a great option. It's user-friendly, and if I can figure it out, you can too. So you definitely want to use an email service provider because that will help with your email deliverability like we're talking about. Also, you have to be careful from a compliance standpoint. Here in the U.S., the FTC will crack down on you. I can't just take Dave Campbell's email and name and put it into my email service provider. He has to say, yes, I want to join, and he has to opt in for something that I've got in order for the connection to be legit. So I had somebody ask me at the podcast festival, she said, I have all these business cards of all these people I met. Can I just take their emails and put them into my email service provider? And I said, no, actually, you know, that's going to violate the Can Spam Act in the US. And then if you're over in Europe or the UK, especially Germany, you have to be GDPR compliant. So you're going to want to look into something like a double opt-in when somebody wants to opt into your list. You may need a double opt-in instead of a single opt-in. And then to keep the list healthy, there's super fun ways to get people to reply to you. I've been experimenting with this now for a few months. If you have a really cool freebie, so here's an example of a way that I got people to respond to me. It was the first email of 2025, and I said something in the PS like, did you spend most of 2024 talking crap to yourself? If you did, I can help you rewire your brain for success in 2025. Reply back the word rewire, and I'll send you my free guide. And I had about 30 people respond. Now, this was a freebie I already had. I didn't have to create it, but I could have very easily put together a short video and a PDF to give them, but they replied back. So when you can get your audience to reply to you, that is going to help your email deliverability. That's going to show the email deliverability gods that your stuff is not spammy.
Yeah. Is there anything else that can keep us out of that spam folder?
Asking people to take it out of the promotion folder and white label it, that'll help as well. And, you know, there's some arguments for don't put too many graphics in your email, or no, you need a graphic in your email, or no, don't put any. I mean, it's like, oh my God, there's arguments for everything. The biggest thing I have found for me is just to have fun ways to get people to reply back. Another fun way I did this, and I didn't offer them anything free, was I was talking about sales. And I was talking about how I used to sell all the band candy for my older brother and sister as school fundraisers, right? Because they didn't want to do it. And I could talk to a brick wall. So I loaded up the red wagon and went around the neighborhood and sold all the candy. And I said something about, reply back and tell me what's the weirdest thing you had to sell for a school fundraiser. And people loved it. They replied back and they're like, we had to sell pizza. Can you believe that? And we actually made it in the school cafeteria. We violated all the health codes. And, you know, it was just funny. And so just think of ways like, you know, if you want your audience to get to know you. So like if you're reading a book and it's the best book you've read in a while, and you're like, I'm reading the guide to, you know, XYZ. What's a great book you've read recently? Or, you know, do you have an opinion about this particular topic? People love to feel included.
Yeah. And the other thing I use in my show is I use SpeakPipe, which is a way for people to leave voice messages for me to bring their voice into the show, and they can hear their own voice on my podcast. It's like, I don't understand how podcasts work, but oh my gosh, I heard my voice, you know, on the show. Great. SpeakPipe's great. And then I also use, as a mean of engagement, I use Buy Me a Coffee. Yeah. And I have a job, which covers my costs. And I don't, right at this point, I don't have any commercials in my show, but I put Buy Me a Coffee out there. And what I do with that money that comes in from my listeners is I reinvest it in other podcasters.
Yeah,
so
nice.
When I help a new podcaster get set up, I want to be their first donation. I want them to see that email. So they're like, I've already made money with my show and I have one episode.
Yeah.
Ta-da, I did it, right? So you get them over that hump and they're like, hey, wait a minute.
Right.
This actually works. And then I want to be their first voice message. I want them to hear what that sounds like.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think a lot of time as podcasters, we create in a bubble. We don't see our audience face to face. We send out our stuff into the world and we hope for the best.
Yeah.
And when we don't see a flood of people coming through the door going, oh my gosh, this is the best podcast in the world, then we get a little down on ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we don't feel as motivated.
Exactly.
So I like to be the other side and try to motivate people by showing them what is possible and encourage them to get past the place where most people tend to give up as a podcaster, so we can extend the life of their podcast. It's something that I really think is important.
I love that. Well, and that brought up another idea. When people leave you reviews, read them. Read the review. You know, if you don't want to use SpeakPipe and use their own voice, read the review. David Campbell said, my podcast was the best thing he's ever heard in his entire life. You know, thanks, Dave. Right.
I have an author podcast, and what I do with my authors is I'll ask them during the interview, how important are reviews to you? And if they're like, oh my gosh, it's the most important thing for me, I read every review.
Right.
I'm like, okay, let's read a few reviews and you can respond to the reviewer.
Yeah.
I read the review and the author responds.
Yeah.
Kathy
that's very
says,
fun.
best book in the world. What do you say to Kathy? Kathy, thank you.
Right.
Like, now, Kathy, who might listen to the show, just heard her review and the author respond. Like, what an engagement piece, right? It's pretty amazing. So
It is pretty cool.
those reviews do count, everybody, just so you know.
do.
Some people are going to tell you they don't count, but they do
Right.
help motivate as well, right?
Yeah, it keeps you going. When somebody says, "Oh, because they'll come join my free Facebook group," and I'm like, "Well, how did we connect? How did you find me?" They're like, "I heard you on a podcast, or I'm listening to your podcast, and it's amazing." I'm like, "Oh, thank you,
Right?
thank you so much.
Yeah.
This makes it all worth it."
I always like to ask that question too. How did you find the show?
How did you find it? Yeah,
Right? Because I want to do more of that. Whatever
Yes.
worked, I want to double down on that.
exactly. Figure out what's working and double down on it. Yep.
So as a new podcaster listening, you started your show, you have 2 listens. Your homework is to find out who those 2 people are.
Yep.
Your analytics will give you some kind of idea of where they might be in the world and what they're listening on. But your job is to reach out through your podcast and talk to them and say, hey, I have a new listener in Chicago. You've listened to both of my 2 episodes. Thank you. I can tell it seems like it's you.
Right.
I would love to hear your voice. So if you're in Chicago listening to my podcast right now, click the link. I'd like to hear your voice.
Yeah.
I did it for one of my shows and for a guy in Germany.
Yeah.
I had someone listening in Germany. They listened to 5 episodes in a row and they didn't listen to any other episodes. They listened to the most recent 5. So I just called them out at the beginning of the episode. I'm like, welcome to the show. I got a new listener in this city in Germany. I would love to hear your voice. I'm in Canada. You're in Germany. I'd love to meet you. And I did that at the beginning of one episode and at the very end of the same episode as I'm wrapping up. Oh, a reminder to my listener in Germany. I'd love to hear you speak pipe. And then about 2 weeks later, I have multiple shows. 2 weeks later, I get an email from SpeakPipe with an attachment and I'm like, play the message. And my wife's looking at me. I'm like so giddy. I'm like, somebody left me a message. So I press play and a gentleman's kind of chuckling.
Yeah.
Says, hello, my name is Simit. I live in Germany. I am the listener that you called out. I just wanted to call and say thank you.
That's so great.
So it's possible.
Yeah,
Again,
it
especially
is.
with a small audience. Don't get down on yourself that you only have a small group of people. What a great opportunity to reach out and actually speak to them.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I think that's just such a great thing.
I do too. And you know, when you mentioned Chicago, we just literally got back from Chicago on Monday. And my thought was, I have a listener in Chicago. So grab SpeakPipe, tell me who you are. And then also, what do you eat on your hot dog? Because there's major controversy in Chicago
Right.
about
I heard
what
about
can
this.
and cannot go on a hot dog. Like,
Right. There's
Yeah.
a whole thing.
It's a
Never do
whole
this.
thing.
Never do this. Never ask for this.
exactly. Or like, oh my God, do you pineapple on the pizza? Yes or no? There's another thing, big thing in Chicago.
Oh,
It's
you're
like,
going to start a war.
seriously. But I mean, you know, just think about who that person is. And the guy in Germany, you could be like, oh my gosh, you know, have you lived there your whole life? What's your favorite food? I love
Right.
bratwurst. What do you think? Have you been
Yeah.
to Oktoberfest? I don't know.
It's something, right?
Something. Yeah. Make those connections.
That's good. Okay. So we know that an email list is important. We know that connecting with an audience is important. Community is important. What else are we missing in a podcast for a podcaster listening that could really help their show?
Promotion of the show.
Okay.
You know, people can't listen to, sign up for, buy what they don't know exists.
Right.
And as a visibility and list growth strategist, I would be remiss if I didn't say it is very important for us to promote our shows on social media. You know, make a post about your latest episode, make an audiogram of a short blurb from the episode, you know, and put it out on social and tell people about it. Go live on Facebook or Instagram and say, hey, I've got a new episode dropping on Thursday. This is what it's about. This is why you're going to want to listen to it. Not going to tell you anything more. You got to watch for your email or, you know, go on Apple and grab the new episode and tease the content. But yeah, we've got to promote it for sure.
If you're thinking about live podcasting, which is another whole thing that's really getting more and more popular, and you're not really sure, then do Instagram lives. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
Start there And just get in the habit of doing that, being good on camera and dealing with an audience and doing your content at the same time. Takes a little bit of practice to do that, especially if you've never done it before.
Right.
And then you can move into something like you said for StreamYard or Riverside, all these other different places you can go to and they can stream out to the world.
Yeah.
But if you're not sure, practice. Like just practice. Right.
Well, here's a tip. If people are very nervous, this is what I teach my students, because live video is something I teach as one of my organic list growth strategies. The algorithm loves live video. So create a free Facebook group where you are the only person in the group. And then go into the group and go live to your heart's content. Practice pushing all the buttons, look at your lighting, listen to how you sound, get over the nerves, get the jiggles out. Do you need notes? Not have notes, whatever. And nobody will ever see it unless you invite them into that group. It's perfect.
Wow. That is a great idea.
Thanks. And if they want to go live on Instagram and it stinks, just delete it. Yeah. I mean, go live and you feel like, oh God, that was the worst thing I've ever done. Get back on Instagram, delete it, and promise nobody's going to remember.
Right.
You don't have to be perfect.
Yeah. If you go live on Instagram and nobody shows up, just do it. Just do it. Keep practicing.
It's okay. I have been going live every Thursday at 11:30 for years. And I still have times when nobody shows up. But I'm okay with that because I know they're going to catch the replay.
Yeah. Smart.
Yeah.
So record for the replay then in that situation, right?
Record for the content. Then take that video. That's why I love using a tool like StreamYard, because I can download the video and now StreamYard will slice it and dice it into short form. So I don't have to do that part. So I can use that for reels and shorts. And then I can download the audio and use bites of that and put that in as my podcast episode. So you can really, think beyond just going live. But what can you use that video for?
Any tips on dealing with a live studio audience while you're recording? That's a lot different than podcasting by yourself, looking at your monitor.
For sure. So my tip is, you'll hear me say this every time I go live, because fun fact, I'm not looking at the live screen. I'm looking at my notes. I get StreamYard live. I get live in my free Facebook group. And then I tab over to a Google Doc that has my notes on it. So I'm not even looking at anybody. I'm not even looking at myself because I don't want to get lost. But what I say is, throw your questions and comments into the chat for me. I'm going to check those at the end. That way, I don't run the risk of getting distracted by a comment somebody made and squirreling off into some other topic that I didn't even want to talk about that day.
Yeah.
So if you're nervous about what do people are going to say, I've thankfully, knock on wood, I've never had anybody be rude or anything like that. I've had them be rude after the fact. Like on one of my I have a YouTube channel. And this one lady said, well, okay, grandma. And I'm like, I know I'm 55, but do I look that old? And then another guy said, you're cringy. You need to get off the internet. The saddest part was he misspelled internet. And I was just, so people can be kind of mean, and my friends were like, that's terrible. What did you say back? I'm like, I just laughed. My response to them was, thank you so much for commenting because you just boosted my video in the algorithm and I really appreciate it. Even though you are a mean snaky snake person. Thanks for the help.
I love that. Thank you for making my episode even better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other tips for somebody starting into live for the first time and they're a little nervous?
Yeah, the notes thing is a big help.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good idea.
If you just want to take a sticky note and you can literally put it next to, like, I'm not going to touch the lens on my webcam right here, but you could put the sticky note right next to the lens. You're not going to see the sticky note, but I can see it and it's right there and I can still look at the lens like I'm looking at you as I'm looking at my notes. Same thing on my phone. I have been known to write out on a piece of notebook paper and tape it to my phone. As long as you don't cover up the lens of the camera, nobody's going to see if you've got an entire sheet of paper here with your notes on it going like this. I'm looking at my notes, but I'm really looking at you, but here's everything I'm going to say, And so just make it easy on yourself and don't try to be perfect. I was so boring when I first started live video because I wanted to be perfect. I wanted the lighting perfect and my sound perfect and my hair perfect. And I think I was trying to be like an anchor woman on the news and it was boring. And it took me a couple of months to find my groove and be myself. I talk with my hands. I talk fast. I make up words. I lose my place in my notes. And my friends were like, I don't know what you had in your coffee this morning, but that was the best live you've ever done. You need to do more of that. And I was like, well, I was just kind of myself, my goofy, weird, makes up words self. And they're like, that's perfect. That's because everything you've done up until now has been really boring. And I was like, well, thanks. Thanks a lot. So don't try to be perfect, because perfect is boring. And what's going to draw your audience to you and your authentic self is for you to be you.
Yes.
That's who they want. Whether you're on audio for a podcast or you're audio and video, people want to know you.
Right. And be the same you in public, in person, that you are on your show.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
If
Totally.
I meet you at an event and you're up there speaking and you come down off the stage, I get to shake your hand. Be the person that you've been my companion for 40 plus episodes.
Yeah.
Be that person for me, because that's who I envision you, because I've heard all the stories. I know all your quirks and everything about you, and be that person to me, not some... It's like meeting a famous actor and they're totally different than you expected them to be.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, that person's extremely rude.
Right.
But in their movies, they're so kind and gentle. And that everything shatters for you in that moment. You're like, I had this image of this person and it didn't turn out to be real at all. Mm-hmm. Right? Be you. When people want to connect with the real you.
Yep.
I like that. Okay, let's do this. One thing that you love about podcasting, and one thing that's really challenging for you in podcasting.
What I love about podcasting is the ability to share a message on a global scale and be able to connect with people that I never would have met otherwise.
Okay.
I think
Something that challenges you, something that's really, right now in the moment, you're like, this is really hard.
Just doing the content week in, week out. Okay. Sometimes I just don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's where I have to put on my CEO pants and hold my nose and do it anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything that you do to make it easier then to keep pushing through?
So like this coming week is a good example. So I'm in launch of my program, and I wanted to deliver a message about list growth and visibility and things that have to do with my program. And I just got back from Chicago. I'm still trying to find my brain. And I needed to create the content for next week. And I just pulled some old content from 2024. I just went back to my list and I'm like, okay, that looks cool. We'll just pull that forward, ask ChatGPT for a new title, and off to the races. Because the chances of anybody truly remembering everything I said in September of 2024, I mean, if that happens, that's creepy, but also impressive. So yeah, if just don't be shy about repurposing your content, because nobody's going to remember what you talked about 6 months ago.
And if you think that nobody repurposes their content, the next time you go to a concert and your favorite band is on stage,
right? What
does everybody want to hear?
Freebird.
The hits, right? I want to hear the hits, not the new song you wrote 5 minutes ago.
Right.
I want the song that I fell in love with my partner from back in the day. Play that song. And the band's like, all we do is play these hits over and over and over to the point where everybody's bored of it.
Yeah.
But there's people that are dying to hear that.
Exactly.
So don't be afraid of repurposing your content, everybody. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, and people need to hear things a lot before it clicks. Right. Just when I get really tired of hearing myself talk sometimes, but then I have to remind myself that that's exactly when some people are starting to pay attention to my message.
Yeah. And remember that even on episode 45, somebody came through the door for the first time. They've never listened to 44 other episodes. Today's their first time ever hearing your voice. Yeah. So the assumption that everybody knows what you've said in the past is not real. Somebody's here for the first time. Don't forget that every new episode's a chance for a new listener. Yeah. So honor them as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah, because like for me, I have 500 episodes. So good luck.
500 shows and 500 episodes.
yeah, kind of a combo of everything, yeah. But for me to even think that you know what I talked about 300 episodes ago is... Right. That's crazy. There's no way you know. So as your library grows, just understand people are going to come through the door. And if you have an inside joke that you don't explain, you have something that happened in an early episode that no one's ever heard, you keep referring to these things that make people go, I don't know what's going on here, and I don't feel welcome because I'm not on the inside of what's happening. Just remember to explain and let your new listener in on the secret when they come to listen to that next episode, right?
Yep. Great.
Awesome. Tell everybody, again, you have some great stuff on your website. You have your masterclass, which is happening right now, which is amazing, which is also going to be done again in the fall. Tell people about what's coming up on your website and how you serve podcasters. I want to send everybody to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. So I do have live masterclasses going on now. They can go to tracybeavers.com/masterclass and grab their spot. I'm teaching 4 out of 10. I have 10 organic list growth and visibility strategies that I teach my clients and students, and I'm teaching 4 of those in the masterclass, and they will pertain to podcasters as well. Anybody that's wanting to have massive visibility online, like we talked about, even if it's a hobby podcast that they're not ever planning to monetize, they may want to get sponsors in the future. You just never know. So come join me there. Also, I would love for them to check out my podcast, Create Online Business Success, and write me a review. And then, connect with me on Facebook, send me a DM, and let's talk about what do you like to have on your hot dog when you're in Chicago. Let's talk about that.
There you go. And our other Chicago listeners, please respond and fix the narrative so we all understand what's the rule, what you can and cannot do in Chicago. Right. Because it's a thing.
It is a thing.
Yeah, so please be careful if you're in Chicago. Order it the right way or you're going to find out real quick. You're not from around here, are you? So that's great. Tracy, thank you so much for doing this. Would love to have you back in the future. Keep us in mind. To have you back would be wonderful. Congratulations on the podcast and all that you're doing to help people. Awesome conversation. Looking forward to seeing you again in the future.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast all the way through to the end. I love having these great guest co-hosts on the show to share their podcast with you. You have some homework to do. And what I'm asking of you is to go check out our featured guest co-host today. Go over and listen to their podcast. The links are always in the show notes. And I'd love for you to go and give them your love and support. And I think if we can all do that for each other, podcasting will be a lot more fun for all of us. So it's time to do what you've asked others to do for you. It's time to do for this guest co-host. Links in the show notes. Go over and check out their show and leave them a review, do the follow, go listen to their episodes in full, the entirety of an episode, which again shows to the apps that it's a good podcast because you're going there and you're staying to the end. It's probably one of the best ways you can help a podcaster grow their audience and be shown to more people is by simply going and listening wherever you listen to the very end, like you're doing right now here. This is the perfect way to signal to wherever you're listening on, this is a podcast worth promoting. And all of the apps want you to stay on as long as possible. So go over and listen to our guest co-host episode and leave them some feedback. If they have a buy me a coffee, send them a coffee. If they have a speak pipe, send them a voice message. If they have an email, send them an email. If they're on Instagram, send them a direct message. Do something to support our guest co-hosts. They've given up their time to be here with you, to be here with me, and we can give that back to them with time and attention, our love, our support. Thank you for doing all that for me as well. Here on the How to Podcast series, we'll talk to you soon for our next episode.